Hello, everyone. I'm glad to have you back at Restoring the Mosaic. I want to talk to you today about a book. So I'm going to do a bit of a book review. The book is called Genderqueer. It's written by Maya Kobabe in 2019. Now, the American Library Association honored this book and recommended it for 12 to 18-year-olds. This book actually is in our elementary schools in Canada as well as the US. Maya has a Master of Arts in comics. This is a pictorial book. And in her first autobiographical course, she was asked what her demons were. And these are the words she used: girly clothes, periods, swimming, bathing suits, and boobs. So everything to do with femininity and body image. So the book goes back and forth time-wise. She starts as an adult, goes back to childhood, and back and forth. But as a child, she lived in an isolated location for quite some time on an acreage her parents bought. It had no indoor plumbing. She liked what she calls boyish things, like picking up snakes, and she liked tree houses, perhaps climbing trees. Now, whether those are boyish things is anyone's guess. I loved all those things as a child. My parents didn't pinpoint or pigeonhole me into them being boy things or girl things. I just enjoyed them. And I liked playing with guys. I loved playing baseball with the boys next door and those kind of things. And I had actually more boy friends as a child than girls because we lived in the country and there were no girls around. Anyways, that's not enough about me. But she was actually offended when she wasn't welcomed to come into the boys' playhouse, treehouse. She felt, I think, feelings of rejection. There's a lot of feelings in this book that, as you go through, will pop out at you. Certainly the feeling of being inadequate. In grade 1, she started school in grade 1, and she didn't know how to read, didn't know how to do crafts such as painting or any kind of handiwork, which is interesting because she talks about her mother being a handiwork teacher. So there seems to be some lack of normative parental guidance and teaching. And you'll hear that again. In grade 5, there was a sense, again, of inadequacy, insecurity, because what she found was that in school, others knew common things that she wasn't aware of. She still couldn't read at this age, which kind of speaks of some underlying cognitive things. Perhaps there was, or emotional things, ADHD, attention deficit disorder, or hyperactivity disorder. Perhaps there was some trauma that is unexplained in this book, but there's also this sense of perhaps there's something on the autism spectrum. We don't know. And we're discussing it, those things. But as you read, even as a parent, you'll think, well, that's really unusual. But she's kind of in that place. She did teach herself how to read. She had Harry Potter books, and she thought, I'm going to read these. After that, she became a very prolific reader. So one of the books she read was Alana's book, and I don't have the last name, but she had books, and so she knew about periods, and she knew that they happened every month. They were part of the reproductive system, and they were totally normal to happen to girls. But what she didn't realize, and was pretty unrealistic, was that she didn't think it would ever happen to her. So that kind of unreality that you keep seeing in this book. She devotes a full 8 pages pictorially to this whole issue of periods, and very, very graphic and very catastrophizing. She also says she dreamed of having breast cancer and thought that boys, certainly, were unaffected by puberty. So she really had a lack of information. She also invented a male twin. And so she's, early teens at this point, inventing a male twin that was interested in girls' things. So he would like to be a girl. So she had this part of her that really wanted to be a girl, but she had to talk herself in that to being a boy in order to like girl things. It's kind of very confusing in that sense. She started fantasizing sexually at age 12. There was a lot of confusion. She had a crush on a tomboy and then on a jock. So a girl, a boy, then another girl. And she started fantasizing about having a penis. And so there's a lot of fantasy going on here. And then she gets into grade 9 and is welcomed into the Gay Straight Alliance. She felt very welcome there. Many children who feel socially isolated go to the Gay Straight Alliance, and they do feel welcome. The unfortunate thing is they get a lot of erroneous information. So it talks about several things. She was embarrassed because the school counselor called her into the office one day due to body odor. And this is in high school. So again, it seems like the parents neglected to talk to her about deodorant, using deodorant, and so then the school counselor did that. And she calls this an example of her constant ignorance, which is really sad. Really sad. Then she gets into gay porn. So she's just in that 12, 13, 14-year-old age at this point, according to what I'm seeing in the book. I can't nail that down totally, but that's what the age seems to be. And she started reading gay porn, including, what she calls tame gay sex scenes. Well, no 12 or 13, 14-year-old needs to be reading about sex scenes. This is pornography. Then she reads another book called Fun Home, and discovering masturbation. And this book actually introduced her again into more pedophilic thought. And she expresses this throughout the rest of the book. And so I've put the picture here that she pictures, she's drawn. And as you can see, it's of a grown man with a boy. And he's assaulting the boy, but it looks like they're in love. And one thing I want to say to you, you hear this slogan, I'm sure you've heard it, that love is love. And it's a slogan of the gay community, the LGBTQ community. And I want to say to you, that is a lie. Love is not always love. What some people call love is not love. It's lust. And love, deep love, takes commitment, and there's a whole other area. But this is what you hear all the time, love is love. Well, I'll go on from there. By the mid-teens, she would assign sensation to the body part that wasn't there, her penis. She could almost feel it, she said. And then she again says, if I was born a boy, she would have played with girly things. Again, she's thinking convoluted there. She could play with girl things if she's a girl too. And then she talks about her sister also being genderqueer and being a moral support for years and years. There's a couple pages where she's having a discussion on masturbation with her sister. The pictorial discussion is very disgusting. So 14 years old, she then reads about transgender in her mother's pagan magazines. And by mid-teens, when she goes to a gynecologist for a pap test, she reacts with excruciating pain, she says, felt like she was tapped through. Now, let me get this right here. There is nothing nice about going for a pap test. Sorry, it's not comfortable. But the exaggeration that you find here throughout the book with things like this is, in my estimation, very extreme. She also has this lack of awareness of reality, of course, with her period. And then after this examination, she writes that she realized things can go inside my body. Well, she had to be 16 at that point because she had her driver's license in order to drive herself home. And she was just realizing this. This is a cognitive issue. There seems to be something happening here. It's certainly cognitive dissonance. She said she cried for half an hour after the appointment and made a vow never to let anything enter her again. And then this next picture is very graphic in her book. And because we jump ahead and she is in a relationship, she's in her mid-20s in a lesbian relationship. And she has this idea in her head of what that would look like. And what there is a penis. But she realizes that this isn't really effective because neither one of them have such a part of their anatomy. So it's just instrumental. So it's confusing. Going back again, she talks about her high school graduation, calls herself a signed female at first, which is part of the Gay Straight Alliance language and LGBTQ. In fact, she was born a female. That is a biological truth. And she talks about being the only one that wore pants. Then we find out that her sister's boyfriend, so her sister's genderqueer, and her sister's boyfriend then is trans. And she introduced her to puberty blockers. We find out as well that her aunt is a lesbian feminist. So she's surrounded by people who are very pro-LGBTQ and are speaking into her life. One comment she makes is that our society's treatment of women is so toxic. Now, this young woman, when she wrote it in 2019, was 28, I think. And I'm thinking, wow, well, maybe there was something to that. I don't know when people were saying, oh, we are in a patriarchal society, but I don't think that that can be a generalization, that our treatment of women is toxic. For me, I've never been treated in an inappropriate manner. And one of the reasons is because of the people I hang with, probably. But at the same time, I don't put off vibes. And I think there's so much to be said about those kind of things. Anyways, she also had, we go back again to her teen years when she's still thinking about where she is on this spectrum of LGBTQ. And she wonders if she's a girl trapped in a boy's body. And that plants some seeds. And then out of those seeds, she doesn't know what the plant's called yet. So this can't be, this has to be before she read her mother's book with transgender. But here's the word: she hates her breasts. She wishes she was a boy. She feels something's wrong with her. So all of that kind of language that we are hearing so much of. Then mid-20s, she's back at the gynecologist and for another examination. And so the doctor gives her really good advice and gives her obviously talked with her a lot about this and explains everything. And it's still, she has an extreme reaction. So after the appointment, she threw up and then slept for 6 hours. This is traumatizing to her. And that's what makes me go, wow, there's something else going on here in my estimation. So words are powerful. Remember, she made that vow. And I think this is a psychological reaction to her vow that she made earlier. She then discovers in university a doctor named Dr. Churchland, who is an analytical philosopher, who's written a book basically on neurobiology, even though that's not her field, and talks about girl brain, boy brains. But this is an interesting thing because this is simply a theory. It is not, conclusive science, but it is putting things in the minds of individuals. And so we have it out there. So, and many studies have actually refuted that kind of logic. Then we get toward the end of the book and she's involved in the trans rights parades and gets more involved in trans issues. We find that she now is teaching workshops to junior high children, ages 11 to 14, teaching them how to draw, how to make comics and all that kind of stuff. And she explains that in her mind, she's thinking, you know, what if some other child in this class is experiencing things like maybe I experienced. And so, according to her, in their best interest, she comes out to the kids and talks about her life. Well, I want to ask you this. Where is the parental outrage? This is a comic book teacher. Yes, she has a master's, talking about sexuality to children who are simply wanting to make comics. And we need, as parents, to stand up to this. I have some good news. In 2 cities in the US, this book has been banned from their school libraries because parents found out about it, read it, and went, no way is this going on in our school. We're not going to allow our children to be exposed to this, to be exposed to something that is absolutely glorifying pedophilia. It's in glorifying early sex, all of those things. And it's just wrong, just plain wrong. So parents, stand firm, walk cautiously, and let's start living courageously and take back our schools. Let's take back the moral teaching of our children. Thanks for listening.